We see chapped lips. I mean, if you know somebody or if you're somebody and you can't live without chapstick, you have to think about, is that because I'm putting air past this hole too often that it's dehydrating the tissues around my mouth?
Ooh.
Um, and people don't realize, you look at all these papers and they tell you how much water you should drink per day, per your body weight, per sec, blah blah blah. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm supposed to drink X amount of gallons, but what if I just stop breathing out of my mouth? If you think about this, go to a cold day and you're outside and you nasal breathe, say you exhale through your nose and you can look at the steam cloud, right? The expiration. And then you look like say you blow out of your mouth and then you look at that steam cloud. You can tell how much water loss there is nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. And so a lot of these people are chronically dehydrated just because they're not breathing properly.
Welcome to the Fredrickson Health Show, highlighting expert practitioners from health, fitness, injury prevention, functional medicine, and integrative medicine. If you are into upgrading and optimizing your health, this podcast is for you. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. And now, here is your host, Dr. Robert Fredrickson.
Hey guys, we are back with another episode with a returning guest. We have Rhonda Holman, the author of Breathe Better While You Sleep. This is a book that I was really enthralled to read. I learned a ton that I didn't know. I've had Rhonda on the podcast before. We've done several different, speaking engagements together, and she's just a wealth of knowledge for all things sleep hygiene, proper breath work, breathing through your nose. And so, super excited today because I think a lot of people get this area wrong or they neglect it. They think of other things first. And so, Rhonda, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fredrickson, for having me again. Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but if you buy the book, you'll see on the back of it, there's some guy you know already by the name of Dr. Robert Fredrickson. He actually helped me with that, just the accountability. Like, what do you think? Did it work? Did you like it? And if so, let's put on the back of the book and tell people, what you thought.
I was honored to be on the back of the book. So that was my first book to be featured on and super exciting to be, just to help you, support you in every endeavor that you do. So thanks again, Rhonda. But Rhonda, so for everyone listening who hasn't heard about you yet, you have a big following online at the Airway Champion, but can you share a bit about your background and what led you to become the Airway Champion?
So I identify first and foremost as a recovering mouth breather and a floppy tongue owner. I've been working in dentistry for a quarter of a century now, believe it or not, and I have been working on mouth breathers this whole time. 25 years I've spent looking into the mouths of mouth breathers. And I didn't at the time know that's, one of the main causes of gum disease and tooth decay was dysfunctional breathing, which is mouth breathing. We're not designed to breathe through the food hole. And it wasn't until about 8 years or so ago, I went to Chicago. There was a big conference at the ADA building where it was a pediatric airway conference. And what they did was they told dental professionals that, hey, you guys have to start screening for mouth breathing. It is wrecking people's health and it's preventing their faces from growing properly. And so I came back with that, like I was on a mission, I was ready to go find all these children and help them. But then I realized like I was that child that needed help and I got missed. And here I was, a 37-year-old adult woman who was snoring, tossing and turning, breathing through my mouth, choking on my tongue every night, waking up with headaches, grinding my teeth, having poor short-term memory, migraines, like all these issues. And it was because of my dysfunctional breathing. And I didn't get to the point where like, okay, I could help kids, but what if I could help adults? And so I learned to help myself first, and then I wrote a book about how people can do it for themselves.
I love it. And on the back of your book, you actually have a picture of you, right, as a child, as a cute child. And if you only knew what you knew back then, I'm sure what could be different. It's so amazing to think about.
It's one of those things. I know that James Nestor wrote a book called Breath, and it's the new science of the lost art. And in there, he says that breathing is the number one pillar to health. So, if you take that into consideration, all these people are doing these fad diets and they're doing these extreme workout programs, and they're buying all the biohacks, right? Like anything they can find that is supposed to help them be healthy. And their mouth breathing or their tongue isn't staying suctioned to the roof of their mouth when they sleep, which is disturbing their ability to breathe through their nose. I mean, if you don't get restorative and reparative sleep, none of that stuff will really ever make a dent. And most of my clients and most of the people that are in my circle who are asking for help are in that community where I've spent so much time, effort, and money on all of these other things, and none of them are helping me. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is the last stone you have to unturn. I mean, under here is where you're not sleeping properly because you're struggling to breathe all night, and they get amazing results. I mean, it's fascinating some of the stuff that's connected to dysfunctional breathing.
Yeah, and I mean, you just kind of answered the question I was about to ask, but breathing is so, I mean, we have to breathe every day, right? So I think people think, oh, well, I already breathe, but a lot of people don't think about, am I breathing right? Is there a better way to optimize this breathing pattern? So, why is airway health such a critical yet often overlooked aspect of our overall health? And what can, how can people optimize this? And how can people, that are maybe mouth breathing, and they don't even know what that is. So maybe explain what a mouth breather is versus a nasal breather and how they can flip-flop that to have, better health and longevity.
So this subject, it goes across multiple fields of medicine, which is probably why it's getting missed. Dentistry is at the forefront, and we're able to see the signs and symptoms before the medical comorbidities show up. So I think we have a little bit of a vantage point. Mouth breathing is when you breathe through your mouth out of a habit and not out of necessity. So here's what happens. You guys, we're very fickle beings. Like this meat suit doesn't take much to mess it up. And so it could be a cold when you're 4 months, 7 months old, 2 years old, and you started mouth breathing and it became a habit because no one was there and said, hey, you got to switch back to the two holes above your mouth now that it works again. The cold is over. Or it could have been, they're putting sugar in baby formula, and we're getting all these inflammatory foods at such a young age. And so it's causing this excess mucus and nasal congestion. And so what do humans do? We think we find the easiest route and we go that way because we're creatures of habit. And so if it's easier to breathe out of your mouth, you're gonna breathe out of your mouth. You're not gonna pick the two holes that are kind of hard to breathe through in the top. And I mean, people don't realize that the nose it's designed for breathing, not the mouth. So the mouth is for eating and the nose is for breathing. And the nose is a beautiful organ. It's a use it or lose it organ. It filters the air, it slows it down, it humidifies it, it gets it ready for the lungs, and then you get to go past the adenoids and tonsils. So that's like the fine filtering, so that the environment that you're living in going into your body is primed and ready for your lungs and not being skipped. Because when you mouth breathe, you guys, you're going straight past the tonsils into the lungs. Like there's no filtration. So a lot of people have, they're presenting with asthma-like symptoms, chronic nasal congestion. They have recurring throat infections, ear infections from a poor swallow. Like it's kind of hard to dive into all the different aspects, but it's just not the way we were designed. It's the backup hole. The mouth is just for an emergency use only. It is not designed to be a full-time use. And even people that just mouth breathe at night, okay? There's a lot of people with really weak upper airway muscles, weak lips. When they go to sleep at night, their mouth pops open and they're breathing through their mouth 8 hours a night. You spend a third of your life sleeping. So you think about that cumulative damage of breathing dysfunctionally all night, every night, and that it takes a toll on your health. And as you age, you start to lose muscle tone. So these body parts are now choking you even more. So you go from maybe purring while you sleep or some audible breathing, and then you start snoring as you get older, and then eventually you're like, oh gosh, my sleep makes me tired. This used to never affect me. Why am I so pathetic now? And then one day you end up with sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea to be specific. There's two different types of sleep apnea. There's central, which is a neurological condition, and then there's obstructive, which is your body parts choking you. And over the years of all this damage and all this muscle that we're losing the strength in, and all the tissues are getting floppy because, we're losing collagen, and we're just suffocating more and more every night until one day you realize, hey, I have obstructive sleep apnea. I just got diagnosed by my sleep physician or a board certified sleep physician, and they say, hey, by the way, you're going to lose 7 to 10 years of your life prematurely if you don't treat this. You keep suffocating at night, your brain and heart will give up. Sorry.
It's a yeah, no, that was great. It's a way bigger deal than a lot of people realize. And just thinking about like when you're talking about the filtration system of the nose, so many people have, and myself included, have lots of different, air filters in their home. But if they're mouth breathing, it's like you're not even using your own filter in your body. So, it makes so much sense to use what God gave us to do, and to use it. And so, I want to get into the science of airway and breathing. What are the most common signs that someone might have an airway issue affecting their health? Like, what are some signs and symptoms of that?
Well, I mean, a lot of times we use sleep as a great measuring tool for biofeedback. So let's say if you were just trying to subjectively look at yourself and think, am I a dysfunctional breather? Sign number one is there'll be, a dry mouth in the morning when you wake up. If you were mouth breathing all night, your mouth will be dry like the Sahara, or you have to wake up multiple times during the night to drink water. So you're dehydrating yourself by breathing through the wrong hole. A lot of people have clenching and grinding of the teeth. So what happens is if your body recognizes that you're struggling to get oxygen, it will sacrifice your teeth and make you clench and grind to open up the airway. It's just, your body only cares about the next breath. It can think about the water and the food later, but if you don't have that next breath, you're done. And so, tossing and turning around the bed, waking up multiple times a night to use the bathroom, getting up in the middle of the night, like between 3 and 5 with the high cortisol. We've got the headaches in the morning. I don't know if I said that. Erectile dysfunction for men. You've got just waking up tired. You guys, if your sleep is making you tired, there's something wrong with your sleep. And there's a good chance it's your breathing that's wrecking your sleep. So always rule out breathing first, before you try to get all the gadgets. A new mattress, a new fancy foam pillow that cools itself automatically. I mean, they've got so much stuff you can waste your money on now when people aren't looking at the tongue. It's the tongue, it's the tongue, it's the tongue. Um, when you mouth breathe, your tongue muscles atrophy. There's 8 muscles in that tongue. And when you don't use them properly, they will end up not holding up your soft palate while you sleep and not preventing your jaws from your lower jaw from falling back and making that air hole smaller. We want a nice big airway, but you can't do that if your body parts are choking you. And okay, so let's say you go to the dentist, right? Say you got lucky, right? You found the airway focused dentist and they are looking at signs and symptoms. So what we're trained to do in the clinical aspect is we're looking for clenching and grinding. So wear on the front teeth, particularly broken teeth in the back. We're looking for gum recession. So right around the gum line on the front of the tooth towards the lips, you'll see where the root is exposed. We're looking for scalloping on the tongue. So if you open your mouth and you look at your tongue and there's little indentations on the side of it where it's pressing against your teeth, a lot of times that's either 2 reasons. Your tongue box, say you went through braces or your face just didn't grow right because your tongue was never up in the roof of your mouth as a scaffold to grow your midface. But you'll see like tongue marks. Yeah, they're like little teeth, like indentations on your tongue. We see chapped lips. I mean, if you know somebody or if you're somebody and you can't live without chapstick, you have to think about, is that because I'm putting air past this hole too often that it's dehydrating the tissues around my mouth?
Mm,
Um, and people don't realize, you look at all these papers and they tell you how much water you should drink per day, per your body weight, per sec, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm supposed to drink X amount of gallons, but what if I just stop breathing out of my mouth? If you think about this, go to a cold day and you're outside and you nasal breathe, say you exhale through your nose and you can look at the steam cloud, right? The expiration. And then you look like say you blow out of your mouth and then you look at that steam cloud. You can tell how much water loss there is nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. And so a lot of these people are chronically dehydrated just because they're not breathing properly. And it's such a significant water loss and it's awful because we know that hydration is key to health. When we're looking at, we have these cone beam computed tomographies. It's like an X-ray that goes around your head. It's 3D imaging, and so an airway focused dentist will go in there and they'll look and they'll say, this is the diameter of your airway. This is small, medium, and large, and this is best case scenario. You're awake, you're standing up. And you're getting this x-ray taken. Imagine what happens when, I don't know, you throw in a cup of whiskey and you go to bed late and you have excess inflammation on the front of your airway, where you have like the double chin, and then you lay down on your back. So that airway, which is a flaccid tube, only gets smaller and smaller depending on what position your body's in. So if somebody goes to the dentist and they get this image taken and they say, "Oh, your airway's super small. It's like a coffee straw." And then you think, "Okay, well, that's best case scenario." Like there's no way this human being isn't suffocating at night. But
Mm.
looks can be deceiving because I've had some patients that have a beautiful, well-rounded airway and they still suffocate. So it's all about the smooth muscle and the fascia around the airway. I mean, I think that really makes the difference in the tongue.
So let's put this into perspective. You said earlier on the sleep apnea statistic, how many years of off people's life can people lose from sleep apnea or some other chronic obstructive sleep disorder, more advanced? Because I think
If you're,
that
yeah, if you're suffocating every night, a third of your life worth of every night you're suffocating, you'll lose 7 to 10 years of your life off prematurely. That
wow.
is how much damage dysfunctional breathing will do for you.
Yeah, so what's the point of taking all these, fancy supplements and doing all these things if you're going to lose 7 to 10 years off your life from not breathing? And it's something that's easily preventable, which is often overlooked. The chapstick thing, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if I use chapstick a lot. I try not to mouth breathe, but I was like, wow, if you're breathing through your mouth, they're going to dry out faster. So, a quick question, quick caveat. When you're doing something like athletically, like you're running or sprinting, I do try to breathe through my nose. I do find it a lot harder to breathe through my nose. Are there any different, strategies for running, for example, like breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth? That's kind of what I was taught a long time ago back in the day. Anything that you do to recommend? I mean, obviously, I probably know what you're going to say, but for people that are starting off, maybe anything else they can do strategy wise?
Um, okay, so let's look up one of my mentors, Dr. Bill Hang. I went to his mini residency in California when he was still practicing. He's now retired, but he's an airway focused orthodontist. He ran the Boston Marathon with his lips taped.
Wow.
So he was in his 70s when that happened. So it wasn't because he was this young, virile, child man who was super healthy and could totally breathe through his nose the whole time, but it's because he trained his body and his CO2 tolerance to adapt. So what happens when you breathe through your mouth, especially on the exhale, you offload too much CO2, and CO2 is the signal for the body to take the next breath. So if you have a low CO2, you're going to end up overbreathing for your metabolic need. And then the extremities of your body aren't going to get the oxygen. The muscles aren't going to get the oxygen that they need because you're offloading this chemistry that you need to substantiate, the endurance versus, input. That being said, it's a whole different ballgame when you try to run with your lips taped. I've done it. I know how hard it is. You have to have a whole stack of tissues with you because every mile you got snot just coming out of your face.
Mm,
And I really, a lot of us are like, go hard, go big. We're so American, like more is better.
yeah.
And so a lot of people just, they want to get there faster. And I'm like, well, how about you let your breath dictate your endurance levels? So if you get to a point to where you're at a pace to where you can't maintain nasal breathing, maybe you bring it back a notch. Maybe you let your body dictate, what its need is. Because I mean, if you look at like, there's an Oxygen Advantage website, and they work with like Navy SEALs and all these elite athletes, and they have like these masks on that they simulate high altitude training. So the air is thinner, so they have to even do more work through their nose to get the oxygen to their extremities and be peak performers. And again, right back to hydration. What is it, the last thing you want to do is dehydrate when you're doing high endurance activity. Like you don't want all that water escaping your body. You want to use it as lubrication. And so, okay, I do know that if let's say you are like a triathlete and you're doing all of these extreme things, yes, you're gonna have to offload the excess CO2 built up by the muscles through your mouth. So in the beginning, I'm like, you know what? Just try to breathe through your nose, and then every now and then you're just gonna have to offload some of that extra gas, and then put it out of the mouth, and then try to regulate your breathing again. Just to, like I said, breathe for your metabolic need and try to keep everybody happy in the body. All the
Yeah.
muscles,
Yeah.
blood vessels, the heart.
Yeah. I knew you were gonna have a story about someone, completely working out with only nasal breathing. I knew you were gonna say that. I knew that was coming. No, but I go to a gym and sometimes we do like nasal only. He's kind of ahead of his time. His name is Jared, but he makes us, do nasal breathing on the rower, for example. Hey, we're all gonna breathe through our nose for this 4 minutes of like a more high intensity type of set. And sometimes when I'm very aware, I will actually try to work out only breathe through my nose. Sometimes, but then
Yeah.
sometimes things happen and not
And
able to.
it's harder just, to insert this real quick. A lot of us have underdeveloped craniofacial respiratory complexes, meaning our face did not grow right. So if our tongue wasn't on the roof of our mouth during growth and development, and we weren't introduced to baby-led weaning, and maybe we were bottle fed and had pacifiers and lived in car seats or these little bassinets too long. Like there's so much that goes into developing a strong, well-rounded, anatomically efficient upper airway. So it's harder for us who learn later in life that, oh crap, our tongue was supposed to be on the roof of it. I always put it in the middle at the bottom. I didn't know it had a place it had to be, which is why, we have crooked teeth and these recessed chins and just the whole mid face doesn't grow properly. And if you think about it too, like the roof of the mouth is the floor of the nose. So if you have a high vaulted palate, the roof of your mouth, if you think about how much nose space is reduced because of that. So the roof of your mouth, if your tongue was up there growing up, it looks like a blueprint or a thumbprint of your tongue. It should be broad and shallow. And when your tongue isn't up there doing that work when you're growing up, it's going to be high like a cathedral and vaulted. So you're going to have less room in your nose for air.
So let's talk about tongue breathing and tongue placement. I think a lot of people don't. I mean, I think you kind of taught me that a long time ago. It's like, hey, like your tongue should be on the roof of your mouth. Um, how do people who aren't used to that start doing that? Um, what is appropriate tongue posture at night versus during the day when you're having conversations? How does that all look? And what are some practical tips for people?
Yeah, so again, the tongue grows the face. So it was designed to be on the roof of our mouth, counteracting the muscles of the cheeks. But when the tongue is absent, the cheek muscles win. And that's when we get that vaulted narrow arch. A lot of people don't realize that your tongue should be suctioned gently from the tip to the back on the roof of your mouth at rest. This doesn't mean pushing. So what I want you guys to do with me really quick is just make the click sound with your tongue. Now, the key is that feeling of suction before you drop your tongue down to make the sound. That is the suction that should be maintained at rest. That should happen during the day. You should always have it up there unless you're eating, drinking, talking, or singing. Your tongue should be resting suction to the roof of your mouth. And that suction carries over into night. So, in order to prevent mouth breathing, the number one treatment modality is getting your tongue strong so it's in the right location. If your tongue is suctioned to the roof of your mouth, it is posturing your mandible forward and it is holding your soft palate up and out of your airway, making that hole bigger so that your body doesn't feel like it's straining to get air in and out of your nose to your lungs. And I mean, it's hard, especially with the older we get, we find out, oh, we're dysfunctional. Like, what do we got to do now? A lot of people tell me it takes a healthy obsession. Like it's hard to say that obsessions are healthy at all, but in this case, it is because you want to fire the neurons together, right? Because they'll wire together. And so 60 to 90 days. Every day you wake up, you do a tongue check. Is my tongue suctioned to the roof of my mouth? If it's not, let's get it stronger and get it up there. In the middle of the day, like anytime I have clients, I'm like, anytime you look at a clock, if you if you look at a clock, check your tongue. I even have some people that are wearing rubber bands on their wrist. I mean, it's super simple, but they'll do a tongue check, and if their tongue's not up, they'll slap the rubber band. So it's, not a lot of trauma, but it's just enough to get that
Yeah,
biofeedback. You're like, oh, wrong. Here's your punishment. It's not corporal, but it's still
yeah.
there. And so they'll, it's different. It's harder now because it's not a well-known subject. So it's not like you're gonna be like, oh, where's your tongue? Hey, Peter, where's your tongue? Hey, Paul, where's your tongue doing? Hey, Sally, where's your tongue? Like people don't say that. So it has to be all you. You have to
Where's your
be
tongue at? Yeah.
accountable for yourself. And I mean, with technology, you could put a reminder on your phone like every hour, but
Yeah.
there's tools. Honestly, like when I started this, it was all willpower, but now we have these things called spot pals. It's like a 3D printed retainer, but it's only for your front teeth, and it has like a little guide for your tongue. So it kind of gives your like an
Oh,
anatomical landmark.
oh
So
wow. Yeah.
like for the first 60 to 90 days, you can just wear it day and night, and unless you're eating or brushing your teeth, and it helps to guide your tongue up. So it just gives you something up there to play with. So eventually your tongue will reset its resting posture. It won't do it on its own, though. You guys have to do exercises. The tongue, again, when you mouth breathe, it atrophies, and you have to get it strong enough to do its job. And that looks like it's a practice called orofacial myofunctional therapy. And it is therapy to strengthen the muscles of the upper airway to include the lips and tongue. And if your tongue is stronger, you will be able to maintain that suction while you sleep. Because a lot of times, especially when you get to REM, we lose that muscle tone and the tongue falls down if it's not strong enough to keep that suction. And that's when a lot of people end up suffocating the most at night. Whether their tongue is suctioned up there or not, it's just because that muscle tone loss. I mean, it doesn't want you to act out your dreams. But a lot of times people get pulled right out of that because their body's like, "Ooh, we can't breathe when you do this. So we're going back to light sleep."
Oh
You
yeah.
can't stay here. And then so a lot of people are like, "I haven't dreamt in 13 years." I'm like, "I know why." It's because you can't
Wow.
stay in
Yeah.
REM. You suffocate too much and your body pulls you out.
So interesting. So for like, what about for like kids who, I mean, obviously, maybe this already happens naturally if they have a strong tongue, but what if they don't? They might be going through, through therapy, but what are some quick tips that they could do to help strengthen their tongue to help ensure that they're getting the proper tongue placement?
Absolutely. Chew with their lips closed. Be that nagging parent and say, "Listen, Bobby, if I see you open your mouth," because what they'll do is if they're a mouth breather, they're going to want to mouth breathe when they're chewing. So they're going to chew with their lips open. And that makes their tongue even sloppier and less toned or has less strength because it doesn't require as much agility of the tongue if you're chewing with your lips open. There's things called the myomunchie. It's like a bilateral mastication appliance that they can chew for 15 minutes a day. It strengthens their lips. It gives them a little guide for their tongue. So the thing is, chewing stimulates the bones of the face to grow. So let's say you have a 4-year-old who's been mouth breathing for 5 years. They had their tonsils and adenoids removed. They had tubes put in their ears. They're constantly sick. They're up and down every night asking for water. They sweat when they sleep, and their bed sheets are just everywhere. And I'm like, "Mom, Dad, does that sound like restorative sleep? Like your kid's suffocating at night and the body's trying to compensate." And so there's just, you can reduce like inflammatory foods. You can get the stuffed animals out of the bed. I mean, there's a certain age where they are not compliant for like the orofacial myofunctional therapy because you have to follow rules. There's
Yeah.
instructions, and then there's certain exercises, and you have to be compliant, and you have to do them every day. Well, up until a certain age, like that just doesn't happen. So there are some speech language pathologists and occupational therapists that can help with feeding because I mean, baby-led weaning, that is getting your tongue stronger. And prolonged breastfeeding helps proper swallow. Like there's just all these things that most of this is epigenetic, by the way, guys. I don't know if you caught on or not. This is self-inflicted. We just didn't know we were doing it.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of things that you can do. There's myotape. It's on Amazon. It's a circumference lip tape that you can put on the kids during the day. So let's say they're down on the floor painting or playing. You can just put that on their face as a gentle reminder and say, "Hey, you'll get, some type of treat or reward in an hour if you play with the tape on." And it creates that muscle, like that tension. So you want the muscles to remember that we're supposed to stay shut, when we're not being used.
Yeah.
And there are some parents after the age of 5, if they've gone to an ENT and they've cleared nasal breathing for their child, they can use the lip tape for sleep. Again, it doesn't go over the lips, so it's not like a health hazard. It just goes around the lips, and it helps to promote a lip seal because of tension. There is a company called Tooth Pillow, depending on how old your child is. I mean, ideally, like you'd want to catch them before they turn 7, because we've lost a lot of the growth by then. And then they scan your kid's teeth and they say, "Hey, there's these guidance appliances where they put them in their mouth and they sleep in them." And so if you know kids, an hour after they go to sleep, that's when the HGH, the human growth hormone, is released. So if their mouth is open and their tongue is down, then their face isn't going to grow the right direction. So they're putting these little appliances in them called growth guidance appliances, and they just sleep in them. And when they wake up, they're growing in the right direction and not down and back.
Awesome. So it's a growth guidance. That's called the tooth pillow.
Yeah, so it's a company called the Tooth Pillow. Yeah, they have
Awesome.
airway centered or airway focused dentist in each state, I believe, all 50 states. And it's all online, which is great. And they'll scan your child's case and they'll say, hey, this is something that he or she is a candidate for, or we want to do this, but you have to go to this guy first, and we have to rule out this or that. And it's nice for a lot of parents that don't have airway focused dentists around them, because it's still a very underserved profession. Like when we go into general dentistry, like a lot of people are just putting night guards in these people's faces and saying, okay, go chew on the plastic instead. I'm like, really? Like that's your solution, is to chew on plastic? Don't we swallow enough plastic already?
Right? Yeah.
I know. You don't have to eat it every night because you're
I
not
know.
grinding. You're just putting something between the teeth.
For sure. Yeah, we're definitely exposed to a lot of microplastics in today's day and age. I want to talk real quick about like some common conditions that people may face that they may not view as a sleeping issue. Like, what if just someone just wakes up tired, or maybe have anxiety, or maybe it's brain fog? How do these common things relate back to breathing?
It's this vicious cycle. So let's say as you get older, everything starts to get worse, right? Especially after the age of 30, you lose 3 to 5% of your muscle tone every decade. And there's 8 muscles in the tongue, you guys. Not just one, there's 8 of them. And they're only attached at one end, which is why it's such a weapon, or, a blessing if you wield it properly. But what we'll do is we keep waking up tired, repetitive, every day we get up and we're tired. So then we start to becoming like caffeine dependent, right? We're looking for stimulants. And then you're like, "Ooh, sugar gives me energy." So then you get addicted to sugar. And then you're like, "Oh, but now I'm all wired. It's like 7 o'clock at night. So I'm gonna drink the wine because I need a downer, right? Because I gotta go to
Yeah,
bed." But then the wine makes you breathe worse when you sleep because of the muscle relaxation properties. And it's like this vicious cycle. And all these people are like, I don't understand why I can't lose weight. Because you have to understand, like, there's a lot of processes that are supposed to happen, especially if you go through like Chinese medicine. When you sleep, like every hour, there's a function of the body that's supposed to be repaired and restored. And if you're struggling to breathe all night, you're going to end up in light sleep and your body can't do its things. And so a lot of the hormone disruption happens then, especially like with leptin and ghrelin, and you're eating late at night. It's just this vicious cycle. We're just trying to survive. We're always tired. So you make really bad choices when you're tired. Because
definitely.
your brain, again, like the brain fog, you can't comprehend like all of these health experts doing this. Like, oh my gosh, you do that every day. Ugh. Why would you do that to your body? Like, wouldn't you just rather watch TV and sit on the couch and breathe through your mouth? And so there's a lot of things, like you'll go to the doctor, right? And they'll say, "Oh, you have high blood pressure." And if you guys think about it, there is no direct cause to high blood pressure. It is a symptom of something. But instead of finding out what it's a symptom of, the doctors will prescribe a blood pressure medication to lower your blood pressure, but not address the cause of what's making it high. And a lot of times it is from the intermittent hypoxia that we're doing every night. And during the day, people are holding their breath too a little bit, but it's mostly at night where it's wrecking people's health. We'd look at, early onset Alzheimer's or cognitive decline. So the brain has what's called a glymphatic system, and it's supposed to clean itself at night when you're sleeping,
Yeah.
especially like the second half of the night. But if you're stuck in light sleep because you can't go to REM because your body parts choke you and you can't breathe, then your brain isn't cleaning itself properly. And so what we see a lot of times is that beta amyloid buildup and the hypoxia, that combination is causing people to have significant cognitive decline. And that's where the forgetfulness is. The short-term memories are stored at night. A lot of the stuff it's accumulating like over the years. And they're like, well, I wonder what happened. And, there's other factors, right? I mean, our brain's made of fat. I mean, just look at all these people that did these low-fat diets and now they have Alzheimer's. It was huge in the 80s and 90s. Like everybody was low fat, man. Every bag had low fat. And now, we have this epidemic of people experiencing these brain related issues or diabetic type threes, whatever they want to call it. But I mean, I say that to say that breathing is a huge part of all this, but it's not the only piece. But if you hit that piece first, the other pieces are easier to put in place.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's high blood pressure. I always see magnesium deficiency and the root cause of
Yep.
that, and then because this vicious cycle between stress and magnesium, but also just airway health and restriction. And you mentioned earlier alcohol, and we in our previous podcast we've known this for a long time now that alcohol is definitely not good for our sleep. It's definitely detrimental. We definitely know that having even one glass of wine for me on my Oura ring sleep, it's horrible. You can definitely tell that there's a huge deficit in sleep quality, REM sleep, deep sleep, etc. But you mentioned kind of some mechanisms behind it. And so I want to kind of dive into that a little bit because I think if people can understand the mechanism of why that happens, they might be more inclined to not do that certain thing, like alcohol. So it relaxes the muscles, which actually causes some of these issues. Can you kind of talk about that mechanism a little bit more?
Yeah, so okay, so alcohol is poison, you guys. In case you want to dress it up and put lipstick on it, it's still poison. And so that's what we like. We like the effect of the poison is that buzzed feeling. The problem with alcohol, especially closer to bedtime, is it relaxes the muscles, the smooth muscles of the upper airway. And those are the muscles that need to stay dilated when you sleep. And so we're over here, putting these sedatives on our body and then wanting our air hole to stay open
Mhm.
when it's going to collapse and the tongue is going to fall down because we're losing that muscle tone, especially during the REM sleep, like we talked about. The way alcohol, I mean, it messes up sleep cycling. A proper sleep cycle is every 90 minutes, you get light, deep REM repeat. So it comes in these cycles, NREM, non-REM, NREM 2. Like there's if I don't know how much your viewers want to get into it, but every 90 minutes it's a wash, rinse, repeat. And it can't
Yeah,
do
no,
that if
yeah.
there's sedatives on board. And that's why I have a lot of clients. I'm like, you know what? PTSD. Okay. A lot of people experience PTSD and have airway disorders. So what'll happen is they're in a traumatic event, they'll hold their breath and they relive that traumatic event. So they'll sit there and they'll lay in bed and they'll recreate the whole event. Like what could I have done differently? How did this happen? And they for some reason their mind gets stuck on this replay. Well, the thing is the mind doesn't know that you're not there still. So every time you replay that specific event, when you held your breath or you were crying, so much at the end, like you'll lose your and then you have like this rapid mouth breathing. And so they'll be put on sedatives. They're like, okay, they're like, hey doc, I can't go to sleep at night because all these memories come flooding back and then their breathing is all messed up. And then they're like, okay, well, here's these sedatives. And then you're like, wait, but sedation's not sleep because you will, in fact, be asleep, but you don't get to do all the cycling like you would if you had
Yeah.
normal, healthy, unsedated, uninterfered sleep. Like that's why, like with caffeine, there's a 12-hour half-life on that. And so a lot of people have like a caffeine drink, like these energy drinks or coffees at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then wonder why they're like not tired at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, well, because everyone's like, oh, I'm so productive at night. Like, that's when I shine. I'm like, no, that's when your half-life of caffeine is still kicking in.
Right. Yeah. It's such a, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that. What about people who, because there's fast metabolizers of caffeine, there's slow metabolizers. I'm a slow metabolizer because if I have caffeine, past noon, I'm up all night. It's horrible. I know I'm sensitive. I've always been sensitive. But other people are like, hey, no, I can have a latte at 6 p.m. I can have coffee before bed. What do you say to those people?
I say good for you. You should have that whole pot of coffee, but just do it before 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I mean, if it doesn't make you jittery or, have any, I mean, where it's a diuretic, you guys. So if you want to stay hydrated, I would lay off the caffeine if you can. Um, I got rid of caffeine. It was a ritual for me. Like I was
No
always
caffeine at
tired when
all?
I woke up. No, outside of some dark chocolate and maybe some natural sources of
Yeah.
caffeine in food. No, I don't supplement anymore. I had to. When I woke up tired every day, caffeine was the only thing that would like get me going. I needed to chop off those adenosine receptors. But now I don't, I haven't had caffeine for, like 3 or 4 years, I think.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I know. And it's funny because like you're like all these things that I was compensating with when I woke up tired every day, and now I don't need them. And I was like, "Oh, congratulations for quitting." I'm like, "No, I didn't need it anymore. It was my crutch. I treated the root cause, you guys. You don't have to suffocate at night, and you can actually wake up before your alarm and be refreshed and not have to like lean on these things."
Yeah, all the everydays. Well, I want to talk about your personal transformation as well because your story is, very fascinating and amazing. But before we do that, I want to kind of go over, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to sleep hygiene? And are there any specific breathing exercise or techniques you recommend for better sleep, maybe before bed or an hour before bed to start that wind down period?
Yeah, sleep hygiene is huge. I never had it. I would fall asleep with earrings on and a full face of makeup and in my clothes. Like it didn't matter. Like I was never refreshed, so I'm like, why bother? And
Yeah,
and so once you're like, okay, I'm putting a line in the sand, I'm going to fix my breathing. You have to change almost everything about your lifestyle if you want to change the way you breathe when you sleep. There's no like, I'll do a little bit of this, see if it helps. Like it's literally like you have to do a hard factory reset to your brain. And it's all or nothing for a lot of us. So because it is such a hard problem to solve, it's one of those things that it's like you're taking over a body function. And so a lot of times what we'll see is a lot of people they're desperate, right? They're struggling to breathe at night. Their spouse or partner's kicking them or pushing them, telling them to roll over. You're on your back again, Frank. I can't sleep. You're sucking in the walls. You'll have like the wives that are over there clenching and grinding to where their teeth are getting flat, and the husband's like, I don't know, she does it all night, every night. And then people are buying all this stuff, right? They're buying the fancy mattresses that self-cool. They're buying these fancy pillows and night eye protection, like these little nightshades,
uh-huh.
blackout curtains, which are great, by the way. And all of these things are individually great, but they're still not, they won't make you sleep better if your tongue isn't staying suctioned to the roof of your mouth when you sleep. And so they'll go out and they'll go buy anything online because people are we want to avoid healthcare providers for some reason. There's two groups. So there's group A who are slightly hypochondriac and they go to the doctor for everything and no one's telling them, hey, check your breathing, let's do a sleep test. This might be the thing that's causing all the other
Right.
things to break. Or there's the other ones are like, no, I'm fine. I'm not dying, so I'm good. And so they'll buy stuff online like these boil and bite night guards. So there's like this, it's awful, awful, this tongue suction thing where you put your tongue in it and it sucks your tongue forward at night while you sleep. Not to mention all the damage it's doing to your temporomandibular joints, like the articulating joint for your jaw and the teeth, the pressure on the teeth. You're going to lose your front teeth if you sleep in something like that every night. It's not designed to hold your tongue forward. But people get desperate. Like they see these little it's like it's supposed to be a CPAP alternative. It's this little nostril insert and it has a fan on it. And they're like,
Really?
yeah, wear this if you have obstructive sleep apnea. It'll cure it. I'm like, no. And so it's just not you need positive airway pressure. You can't get that from a little fan. And they have like these stimulators that go underneath your chin now. It's like a little sticker. Somehow that's supposed to like shock your chin and keep your tongue from falling back at night. It's the Wild West. All these people are waking up tired and looking for something to spend their money on that gives them empty promises. When at the end of the day, you have to reduce inflammation in your diet. You have to make sure you have your magnesium, you guys. The magnesium is huge. Sugar is an anti-nutrient. Like you have to understand, like there's these highly processed foods and seed oils and the GMO corns and glyphosate and gluten and like all these things that our body is constantly fighting when we put it in the food hole, with a reaction being inflammation. And so that excess inflammation, again, affects every part of your body, including your upper airway. So if you already have a small, anatomically small upper airway, and then you create inflammation, you're making that tube even smaller. And so you have to get rid of those things and part with them. And you have to understand, rebounding. So the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. So if you jump up and down, you can open and close it, and then you can help move that lymphatic fluid around your body. I never touched my face. If ladies, if you're listening and or men, whoever, if you wear a full face of makeup, you only touch your face twice a day. You touch it in the morning when you're putting your makeup on, and you touch it at night when you're washing your makeup off. And that, I mean, everybody's understanding like if you move the lymph in your face, move it down the chin, through down to the collarbone, you're actually helping, a third of your lymph nodes are from the chest to your head. And so if you're not touching them and moving them, a lot of that stagnation will affect, again, the size of your upper airway because you've got stuff stuck. There's just is so much to it, like yoga movements, breath work. Okay, we were talking about nasal breathing. It sounds like it's so easy, you guys. Hey, all right, podcast over. Just shut your mouth and breathe through your nose. Bye. Okay, done. It's not that easy, believe it or not. I mean, you think that it would be, but it's you have to do a bunch of stuff to reset this body uh autopilot condition that we have of mouth breathing. And so it's called Buteyko, Buteyko, and it was developed by Dr. Konstantin Buteyko. I want to say 100 years ago. So what he did was, I think he was a European doctor, and he was working in end of life care. And he says, why is everyone who's getting ready to die breathing through their mouth? I mean, you just went in there and everybody's in their wheelchairs, just mouth agape, and they're over there struggling to
Mm,
breathe. And he's like, there's something to this. So he started working with patients and getting their mouths closed and them functionally breathing, and they were actually regaining some of their health. It was like, oh my gosh, turns out how you breathe matters. And so he developed a program called Buteyko breathing. You guys can go online at buteykoclinic.com, and they will teach you about the carbon dioxide versus oxygen. There's like all these different things like loop gain and Bolt scores. You can learn all of the science behind it. But essentially, at the end of the day, it is training your body to breathe slow and silent through your nose, especially at rest, because you want to breathe for your metabolic need. It was James Nestor. He made this post once, and it was like, mouth breathing is over breathing, right? So it's like you're sitting at a stoplight with your gas pedal all the way down while holding the brake. It's like,
ooh, yeah.
if
Good
your
one.
body thinks you're running from a tiger when you're mouth breathing, because that's what it's designed. It's a backup hole. It's for emergency use only. And so if you're chronically mouth breathing, your body is just chronically revved up and you're going to wear it out early.
Mm, so interesting. So interesting. Well, what is Rhonda's personal routine? I know it's not going to be the routine for everybody because I know you've got some very specific facial development goals, and I think you've achieved some of these goals already. But what is your nighttime routine? What is your daytime routine? Um, how do you unwind? What kind of breathing styles do you do? And if this isn't practical for everybody, because I know you're dedicated to this, what can someone do in maybe a shorter amount of time?
Yeah, so step one, the minute you wake up, you're thinking about the sleep. Like every choice you make during that day is going to impact the way you sleep that night. So you get a redo, you guys. Every morning you wake up, you get choices that you can make that are either going to make you breathe better while you sleep that night or make you breathe worse when you sleep that night. Circadian rhythms are huge. Get outside, get that horizon light on your pupil. I don't care if you're out there for 10 seconds, it's going to help set the melatonin release 16 hours later. And you really need that for you to be able to fall asleep properly. This is outside of breathing. This is just the circadian rhythms. We're missing out on a lot of things. Again, right back to it's all epigenetic, like it's all self-inflicted.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill to swallow when you peel back and you realize that these modern conveniences are wrecking our breathing and sleep. Okay, so I'm in the morning, I'm jumping, I drink water, do some minerals, some Celtic sea salt or some Baja Gold sea salt just to help open the cells and hydrate. I do rebounding. So I have a little mini trampoline and I try to do
Nice.
3 to 10 minutes on that, breathing through my own nose the whole time. A lot of times I'll do just some gentle yoga movements, some hugging myself and stretching my arms and just getting my spine to come back to life after sleeping for 6 to 8 hours. And then I have tea. I really like herbal teas. When I gave up coffee, I was like, ooh, okay, I want the seance. Every
Yeah.
morning I got up, I had this warm liquid and I processed my day. It was like my time. And I didn't want to give that up. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not going to drink coffee, what can I do? And I was like, well, let me find herbal teas that are medicinal and actually will do something for me instead of to me. And so I ended up switching to like a dandelion tea in the morning. I actually do a bunch of
Nice.
weird herbs. Like I alternate between horsetail and clover, red clover and um, comfrey. And I mean, when you stop spending money on alcohol and coffees and like what am I going to do with this extra money now? I'm going to buy organic and then get some medicinal herbs.
Yeah.
And then
You become a hippie. Yeah.
it's really fun. Yeah, like I would totally have a tea party with you. I want to bring my herbs, you bring your herbs, and then we'll talk about what they do for you and how often you should use them.
I'll bring
So
my
it's like
magnesium. We can have a
clinically, yes,
yeah,
exactly.
tea magnesium party. Yeah.
I would totally do that.
I
Um,
love that.
I just talked my dad into taking magnesium. I shared a bunch of pages from your book with him, and I was like, listen, I was like, he's like, I can't sleep at night. My legs hurt. I'm like, you're magnesium deficient. He's
And
like,
you're not breathing right. No, I'm sure
I
you've
well,
already
yeah,
mentioned
yeah. I mean, but here's the thing, you guys. Let's say you listen to this episode and you're like gung ho. You're like, you know what? My tongue doesn't stay suctioned to the roof of my mouth, and I know I'm mouth breathing, and I know I wake up tired. I'm going to do a lot of the things that Rhonda suggested, and I'm going to get better. And then people around me are going to be like, "What are you doing?" And then you're going to say, "Well, I stopped mouth breathing." And they're like, "Yeah, that's not a thing." And then you'll be like, "Oh, I want to tell everybody about this. I didn't realize that my breathing was impacting my health." And they're going to be like, "Nope. They have to hear it on their own. You can't
it.
make
Yeah.
someone switch such a ingrained habit because it takes a lot of neurons to reset these postures and patterns." Um, okay, so I go to work. I always nasal breathe unless I'm talking. I do my best to focus on keeping my tongue suctioned to the roof of my mouth, and it does for the most part now. I mean, this many years into it, it stays up there. I have to pull it down to talk. So, what's really strange when you go on this journey is there was a point where I was like, okay, the doctors are telling me my tongue needs to stay suctioned to the roof of my mouth, but it feels so weird up there. And like I couldn't breathe through my nose as well. And it's this whole, use it or lose it thing. And my tongue was floppy and it was big because the muscles actually can have fat in between them. And so people don't tell you have a fat tongue. You actually could have a fat tongue and it takes up more or pharyngeal space. And so um, getting it to stay suctioned up there, it was hard. But if you do the exercises every day and you commit to it, it gets smaller and it's easier to stay suctioned to the roof of your mouth. I do intermittent fasting. I mean, I feel like it's better for me. Like right now I'm on a 72-hour fast, which
Oh,
I do every
wow.
menstrual cycle. Yeah. So I give my body 3 days off every time I I shed my uterine lining. I don't
Wow.
know what I'm gonna
Cool.
do when I go through menopause because I won't have that little trigger every month to remember to do it. I'm
Do you
sure
feel
my
better? Do
fellow
you feel better after you do a 72-hour fast?
yeah, I mean it's amazing how much room you have in your nose. Like I have zero
Oh,
boogers.
because
Like
you're focusing on the breathing aspect
it's
of it.
always about breathing for me. No
Wow.
matter
Yeah.
what, it always comes back to
Yeah.
is this making me breathe better at night or worse? So I don't do it for anything other than the fact that it helps me breathe better.
Wow.
And it's yeah, it's one of those things, but usually it's a 16/8. And I'm at the point now where like I don't eat for joy. I don't live to eat is what they're saying. I eat for food that has something to give back to me. Like if it
Mm.
doesn't have a medicinal purpose, like if it's not a high in zinc or all these vitamins and minerals, like I don't want it. Like if it's not an oyster or sardine, like don't put it near me.
So if it's like a tortilla chip or something processed,
I
you're not
won't
gonna.
eat corn. I don't eat
Yeah.
corn. Like it helped. So if you do like a food elimination diet, that's what I really did. Like when I went all in and I got rid of a bunch of foods. And then it turns out refined dairy, pasteurized dairy, refined sugars, gluten glyphosate, GMO corn, seed oils like the omega 6s aren't so good for me. Like all of these things make it harder for me to breathe through my nose. And so I got rid of them. And you kind of like with any food elimination diet, you just go get rid of everything and then you bring it back in slowly. And I remember, oh my gosh. So we only have one fast food place in my town. It's a Dairy Queen. And so my first thing I was going to incorporate back into my diet was dairy. And so I didn't realize I didn't know a lot about food at the time. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get a Dairy Queen and see how it does. And it was sugar and pasteurized dairy. I was miserable. I had pimples show up on my neck out of nowhere. I had a migraine like the next day. My sleep was awful because I tracked my sleep wearing an Apple Watch. I was like, well, okay, I'm not doing that again. And so just over time, you start getting this really good biofeedback when you clean up your life and diet and start doing saunas and detoxing and staying on top of your hydration. Like you actually can tell when stuff makes you feel bad. Like before I couldn't tell because I was just inundated with all this inflammation. So I never, I just chronically felt bad. So none of it mattered. And you have to. I mean, I do that, like I said, the food elimination. I do a lot of probiotics, a lot of prebiotics, because a lot of gut health has to do with inflammation and excess
Yep.
mucus in the body. And so I don't really do a lot of exercise outside of the rebounding. I do a lot of stretching, like my sleep hygiene routine. The last 30 minutes of my day is for my sleep. So I do the same steps pretty much in the same order every night, like a robot, unless I'm traveling, or it's vacation.
Yeah.
So I want to say 80-20. Let's say 80% of this 80%, I do 80% of the time, and then 20% I don't. So it doesn't have to be like all encompassing and like something that you dread, but every night I have some similarities to the night before, which is washing my face, brushing and flossing my teeth, doing a face oil routine, doing face massage and tongue workouts. And then I go to the floor before I go to my bed. And I have a foam roller next to my bed, and I always roll out the fascia. A lot of
I was
people
about
don't
to ask you
realize.
that because last time
Yeah.
we talked, you're talking about foam rolling. So I'm
Every night, because you think
still
about
do
like
it.
all
Love
these
it.
postures that we're doing. I'm right here. You and I were sitting down at a computer, and this happens to a lot of human beings where we have like sedentary career fields. And it's funny because like the smarter you are, the more money you make, the less you move.
Mhm. So
It
true.
is
Yeah.
so weird. So that's like a rich person's disease to some extent. It's all the Western stuff. But I foam roller every night, no matter what, because I mean, you want to release the fascia and these adhesions that happen from sitting down so much. We're sitting in the car, we're sitting at work, and people don't realize that it makes it harder to breathe at night when you have all this tight fascia around your lower ribs that are supposed to be nice and fluid and floating. And
Hmm.
so every night you get on that foam roller, it could be 10 seconds, it can be 10 minutes. It's just enough to release some of that fascia so it's easier for you to breathe when you sleep. And a lot of neck work, a lot of people have forward head posture when their tongue is floppy and not staying suctioned to the roof of your mouth. So it's like the whole center line or the front line fascia. And you realize you have like all this neck tension. So you kind of use that foam roller to roll it out. I do a lot of different yoga moves. I'm a big proponent of headstands. I know not everybody is clinically able to do them, so you'd have to get medical clearance before you attempt a headstand. But it releases so much of that fascia that's so tense and tight and stuck from these repetitive movements, and it helps, bring the blood flow up to the head and get everything ready for bed. I use, like I said, an Apple Watch. So I put that on, I turn it on. I have an app called the Pillow app, and it tracks your sleep cycles, your oxygen saturation, your wakefulness periods. It tracks your heart rate. It tracks breaths per minute. So as of right now, the FDA has only cleared one appliance, which is the Apple Watch, to detect sleep apnea. So it can be something like, let's say you have an Apple Watch and you have some recordings on it, and you can take that to your doctor and say, hey, I think I have sleep apnea. And then that can get the ball rolling to get a referral so you can get a sleep test. And then I lay down and I put my lip tape on. I lip tape every night, have done that for 9 years. At this point, my lips, I've done all the exercises, right? My lips are super strong. They stay shut. But there's something about having that security of knowing that I'm not going back to mouth breathing that wrecked my sleep. And so it doesn't take much, just a small piece right across the lips, and I'm out.
And what does your husband do while you're doing all this? Does he do some of these stretches with you?
He does none of them. Again, you cannot
Yeah.
water. Or wait, no, you can lead the horse to water. You can't make them drink. Everybody has to come in their own time, and he's lucky enough that he has a pretty decent airway. He didn't have to have braces like I did, where I had 4 teeth removed to get rid of the crowding, or head and neck gear. And so his airway anatomically is bigger. Yes, alcohol. I'm telling you, like alcohol, as soon as you drink that drink, you go to bed, you're snoring. There's
Mm.
very few people who can't drink and not snore. it is so awful on the patency of the upper airway and keeping that dilated.
So everyone wants to know, or is going to want to know, what is going to be the first meal that you're going to eat after the 72-hour fast?
Fat, fiber, and protein every time.
Fat, fiber, and protein.
Fat, fiber, and protein, baby.
You
That
have
way I
a
can regulate my blood sugar level.
do you have a certain meal that's like on cue, ready to go, or are you going to just kind of find something
I
to
used to
mix?
wing it, which isn't very good for your digestive system. So now it's usually sardines packed in water with the bone and the skin, two heaping scoops of sauerkraut, that's a probiotic fermented, and then some like sprouted pumpkin seeds. So I'll put it all in a bowl and I'll eat it, and it like sets up my digestion for the next 28 days.
You're awesome. Yeah. I don't like sardines, so that's amazing that you're able
Well,
to
here's
eat
another
them.
one, SMASH. It's a great acronym, you guys. So it's the top
Sardines,
five
mackerel, anchovies.
omega-3 holders, the
Yeah.
least amount of
Yeah.
mercury. So you got sardines, anchovies, um,
Mackerel,
mackerel. Hang on, salmon,
salmon,
salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Smash.
herring, herring. It's not
Herring.
haddock, herring.
No.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
I wish of you. Good.
Awesome. Well, this has been amazing, and I have a few more questions, so we're going to do kind of more rapid fire. Um, we've already talked about kids and how we can, promote proper breathing with kids, but is there a role for orthodontics, or, is there a role for air expanders, jaw expanders, that sort of thing for kids? And what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're so lucky at this stage and age. There are people that are actually starting to become airway focused in the orthodontic community. Because before they were only driven by aesthetics. You're like, oh, you have crooked teeth? Let me put some brackets and wires on you and make them nice and straight. Oh, you have too many teeth. Let me take those out. And then I'll pull back your teeth and make them nice and straight. I didn't care about what your tongue was doing, not realizing the tongue was pretty much the main instigator as to why the teeth didn't fit in the first place. But we're so lucky. Like there's a whole bunch, there's this huge movement in the orthodontic community now where they're trying to make room for your kids' tongue. So instead of retractive orthodontics, they're looking at expansion orthodontics. And that could be as easily as like there are a lot of them that are doing two-stage orthodontics. So they'll get your child in there when they're like between 5 and 7 years old, and they'll put a palate expander in there. And then in a couple years, then they'll do the traditional braces, but they at least made room for the tongue and to encourage proper growth and development. Um, I mean, there's so many different types. There's Vivos, there's Alf, there's Marpy, Sarpy. I mean, there's so many different expanders. There's like a traditional expander. At the end of the day, yes, it's nice to make room for the tongue, but the tongue, again, is the reason that there wasn't room. So it breaks my heart if someone goes to the orthodontist and they don't ask about their myofunctional therapy. You say, hey, this is $2,500. I can put your kid in these braces, and then they'll have pretty straight teeth in 2 years. I'm like, okay, but you didn't say anything about why it happened. We need to be our own advocates, you guys. Why do your teeth not fit in the face? Why did your child's face not grow enough room to make their teeth line up straight? And then if your orthodontist doesn't suggest a myofunctional therapy evaluation to evaluate the function and the strength of the muscles that dictate where the teeth grow in, then I think you might need to find a new guy because they're probably the guy who's going to take up tongue space. They're going to do retractive orthodontics, so they're going to make a problem worse, more than likely.
Yeah, I love that. My son is actually in that stage two. He's doing the stage one right now, and he got the expander. So I think it's helping him a lot. But and also all the tips that I've learned from you throughout the years have also helped. Okay, so what are some simple at-home assessments people can do to assess their airway function? I know there's the one nostril, other nostril check, which I love, by the way, because sometimes it switches between nostrils. But what are some assessments people can do to assess their airway function and whether or not they need to do some different modalities to improve it?
Yeah, so again, going back to the Buteyko, Buteyko, they have a test in there called the BOLT score, BOLT. And I wish I knew what it stood for, but that was apparently a penguin that jumped off the iceberg in my brain. Uh, It's where the split, like the minute you wake up in the morning, you inhale through your nose, you exhale through your nose, and then you pinch your nose and you time yourself. And what you want to do is see what your tolerance is to CO2. Anything below 20 seconds is really, really bad, you guys. Ideally, like elite performers, they can go a minute. But if you hold that exhale and you get the first distinct urge to breathe, or like a first abdominal spasm or spasm in the diaphragm, then you just time it. And then as your breathing improves and you breathe all the way through your nose in and out, making your exhale longer than your inhale, and you do that over and over every day, you should have a higher tolerance to CO2. So each 10, like once a week, you just lay in bed on Sunday mornings before you get up and you inhale and you exhale and you pinch and you hold any time and see how long you feel tolerance to that CO2.
And
Um,
you have it all written out in your book too.
Yes, it's all,
So
yeah, by the way, all of this is in the book, you guys, in case, you didn't catch any of that.
it's all
I
in the
don't
book.
tell you
So
what to do. I tell you why you should do it because a lot of doctors they're missing out on that opportunity. Like the brain is amazing if you tell me why I should do something. We're so good in the medical field of just telling somebody what to do. But if you don't tell them why, they're less likely to stick to it because
exactly.
being told to do it, not why they should do it. Um, just the lip tape helps a lot. I mean, I have clients, that's all they want to do. They're not ready to do any of the tongue workouts or reduce inflammation or do the fascial work. They're not ready to do any breath work. They just want to stop breathing out of their mouth, and lip tape is great for them. The best way to find out if you are a candidate for lip tape is to take like a business card and put it between your lips and hold it there for 3 to 5 minutes. If you can breathe through your nose that whole time, then you're a candidate for lip tape. There are some subgroups that shouldn't tape, and that's usually children under the 5-year age mark, because a lot of times that's not a habit, you guys. They're breathing out of their mouth because something's blocking their nose. They're not just doing it because a lot of times there's adenoids or tonsils at play, or excess mucus and inflammation in their nose, or they're not doing any nasal hygiene. They're not blowing their nose or rinsing it out. So there's a bunch of gook up there. It's preventing airflow. Under the age of 5, I mean, if you could avoid it, until you find out that they can in fact breathe through their nose and it's a habit at that point. People that have drank alcohol or took sedatives, they should not tape. Again, we're losing that muscle tone, and people who are intoxicated may throw up. So the last thing you want them to do is to have to throw up through tape.
Oh
And again,
God, that sounds
but
horrible.
it's awful, asphyxiation and all that stuff. But here's the thing: when it comes to picking a lip tape, if the lip tape doesn't come off with you opening your mouth, then it's not a good lip tape. Everybody's looking for like these solutions that are really dramatic and they're like a giant hostage tape. I'm like, no, 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 no. You just need a tiny little thin piece of 3M micropore paper tape, and you can either do it vertical or horizontal. Like, you just need tension. If you can't yawn or open your mouth and the tape comes off, then that's not. I don't like that tape. I think that's too much.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, you should
you
be able to
should
do it on your own, but the tape's kind of
yes,
there's
be able
insurance.
to drop your jaw and the tape comes off.
Yeah.
Um, and then, people with untreated, undiagnosed sleep apnea. The last thing you want to do is take the only hole somebody can breathe out of and close it. And so, yeah, there's you exercise caution. At this point, people are like, "Oh, it's unhealthy." They'll say, "Oh, taping your mouth is so dangerous." And I'm like, "Clearly, you don't know how bad mouth breathing is for you, because that is the dangerous thing. Like,
Mm,
breathing
yeah.
your food hole is way worse for you than closing the food hole at night."
Yeah. Way to fight back. Yes.
Like, yeah, you clearly haven't read the research and the science. I mean, I don't have a paper I can point you to and say, hey, this PubMed says that taping makes you healthier. Like, it just doesn't exist. There's too many variables. But I can tell you firsthand, it changed my life. And that's what kind of like woke me up to this. I'm like, if this one little piece of tape can do this much to my sleep quality, like what else could I do? And that's when I went on to doing all the research and all of the self-experience, the N of one stuff that I've done in order to come up with a solution, that people can read and implement, in their own life.
And so in your book, I mean, you go over all kinds of different exercises. I love how you go over certain brands of different, nasal rinses. You go over the xylitol spray. You go over different tapes. I mean, it's really all in here, guys. So, I mean, if you're looking to really upgrade the way you breathe and improve the way you sleep and breathe in your family's sleep hygiene. This is a crucial book that I think everyone should definitely check out because it affects so many different things. And if you have kids, what better way to improve their sleep and for generations to come. So, yeah, this book's been it's everything you always talk about, but it's all laid out in a, just a wonderful roadmap for better breathing. So I encourage everyone to check this book out if you haven't already.
I really did try to write it for the person suffocating at night. Coming to people when they're in their most tired state and making something that they can understand and implement right away. Like, okay, don't tell me, what needs to happen in 10 years. Tell me what I can do right now. Like, I can't lay down and breathe through my nose. And that's like the number one thing we get. People want a lip tape, but as soon as they lay down, their nose clogs up. You're like, why is that? Did you
Yeah.
do nasal hygiene? Have you been humming? Did you try the Buteyko breathing decongest? Did you eat inflammatory foods today? Like you have to like do this elimination thing. Like there's a reason you can breathe when you're upright, but you can't breathe when you're horizontal. That is all self-inflicted. That is not a nose problem. That's a lifestyle problem. And
That,
not
that
doing
that's when you start digging, right? Start digging
yeah.
deeper, figuring out the root
Don't you
cause,
think it's a
why.
little
Yeah.
weird that you can
Yeah.
breathe when you stand up, but you can't breathe when you lay down?
Yeah. Or maybe people could do that. Say, hey, I'm breathing right now through my nose, lay down, see what happens. Yeah. So makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, this has been amazing. Um, I actually have a bunch of other questions that we'll have to get to next time. But the fun and thought-provoking questions that I always ask. And I'm going to see if your answers have changed a little bit. I actually have tweaked this because I already know what your answer is going to be. So you're getting a customized question, Rhonda. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only bring three things related to airway health, because I knew it'd be airway health anyways with you, and sleep, what would they be?
My lip tape. Not that I need it anymore, but I love it. And I could tell you all the different brands, but you kind of really try them on yourself and see which one you like. We're all unique, so it can't be like this is the end all be all. This is the best lip tape. No, no, the best lip tape is the one that you can wear. It's the one that stays on all night. That is
Yeah,
the best lip tape out in the market. And it
that's
could
what
be
I,
just
yeah,
it could be a Band-Aid. I've done that, you guys. I've taken the cotton out of a Band-Aid and just put it on my face because I was like, oh, Band-Aids work. I
whatever
just
works.
need that gentle reminder to make sure that I'm nasal breathing because I'm resetting these functions that I had for 37 years. That's ingrained. I was a mouth breather every night. So I just need a little bit of security, and that comes in the tape. Second thing I'm bringing is the Remplenish Myonozzle, REM Plenish. It's from Remastered Sleep. It is a myofunctional therapy exercise nozzle, and it is designed specifically to make the back of your tongue strong. And that's where most people have the most collapse is in the back of the tongue, and it's not up there suctioned, holding up your soft palate. Imagine this. It's like it's learning how to breastfeed as an adult. It has the same mechanical
Is
properties.
it a water bottle too?
So, well, yeah, their website, you can buy just the nozzle or you can buy the bottle they sell that goes with it. So it has like a lid and you can travel with it. Um, but I mean, 30 days. I was in the beta too. Like I've been using this thing for 6 years. And 30 days is all it took for my tongue to start staying suctioned to the roof of my mouth. I
Oh,
was doing
wow.
all the exercises, but this was the one thing that like icing on the cake. It got my tongue up all night.
Wow.
Um, and
Cool.
then my foam roller.
Nice.
Honestly, like if you do not release that fascia and that tension and help your cervical spine heal and restore from all the years of forward head posture and floppy tongues, it's the one thing I almost like I went to a hotel once and I found a foam roller in their workout room. So like it was right before bed and I went down and rolled out. Like this is how desperate I was. Like
Yeah. You
because
got to do
they're
what you
kind
got
of
to
hard
do.
to take on a plane. You can get the little versions, but they're not quite the same as like a
Yeah,
nice
it's
full
true.
body roller. So yeah, lip tape, this exercise nozzle, and my foam roller.
Love it. Okay. The billboard question. If you had to put or could put one health related phase, I know you're just going to be for airway health, and breathing and sleep hygiene. What would you put on that billboard and why? What would you want everyone to see as they drove by?
It would say how you breathe matters.
How you breathe
Yeah,
matters.
because a lot of people don't think it matters, but it does. I mean, it is the cornerstone to health. How you breathe matters. just because you're breathing doesn't make you healthy. It makes you alive.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing it properly, your body is paying the price.
That'd be a great t-shirt too,
Right? I think
right?
I ironed it on like a beanie once.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, you should trademark that. That'd be perfect. We've gone over a lot of things today, but I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything that you want everyone to hear. Is there any questions or topics that maybe we didn't discuss today that you want to go over real quick?
Well, medicine, it's always evolving and changing. We're learning new stuff all the time. So, what I say right now may not be relevant or exactly correct in the next 10 to 15 years. But as of right now, with the data that we do have, there is a significant improvement in quality of health when you use your body parts properly. I mean, it just is what it is. Definitely, please check out the book, Breathe Better While You Sleep. It's on Amazon. I have a TikTok storefront as well. And if you need one-on-one help, I am a coach and co-founder of airwaycoach.com, where we do one-on-ones. We have a DIY program where you can watch videos if you're not much of a reader, like you can actually go through the videos and learn that way. We have a support system for people that are going to have a tongue tie release or, just want their tongue to function and operate better. It's been really exciting. Like, again, most of my clients are people who have tried everything else, and like I'm their last ditch effort to fix themselves. And we've had a lot of promising process and progress, and just it's neat. It's really, I feel like I get to leave this place better than I found it. And when I get off a call with a client, so it's usually an hour-long Zoom, I have all this adrenaline. Like, who needs caffeine? Like, I feel like I'm doing exactly what I was made to do. And I had to go through the dark to get to the light so that I could lead others.
You're doing a great job, and it's very inspiring to watch all your endeavors. And I'm super excited for more people to learn about your book, your Airway Coach coaching, and people. If you don't follow Rhonda already, she's the Airway Coach on Instagram and on TikTok, and we'll link all of her websites and programs on the show notes. So, Rhonda, thank you again for coming on today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fredrickson, for having me. And thank you, audience, for giving me this time to maybe talk about something you already knew or give you some new information you didn't know before.
Thanks for listening to the Fredrickson Health Show. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email newsletter for more information.